Something that newspapers are covering today is the meeting between MPs that will be happening to discuss how best to respond to that damning report that came out last week, claiming there was a widespread culture of bullying and harassment within Westminster. Now, dozens of current and ex-parliamentary staff who have reported bullying have waived their right to anonymity to sign an unprecedented open letter calling for urgent change. Well, I'm pleased to say that Lisette Whittaker added her name to that letter, and she joins me now to tell us her story of harassment in Westminster. Good morning to you, Lisette. Now, it's very brave of you to go public, so we really appreciate you coming in this morning. Thank you. Now, this report said there is a culture of widespread bullying. It is described as a real problem. What was your experience of working in Westminster?
Well, I started my Westminster career back in about '93, and I think it was sort of fairly immediately, really, that I experienced sort of low-level harassment. Nothing you could really sort of put your finger on and say that's actually a sort of harassment issue.
So what would it be like? Just
it would be
comments,
yeah. I joined a European scrutiny committee, and people would make comments when I walked into the cafeteria about, "Oh, here come the Euro babes," and I was only sort of 19 at the time, and it was quite off-putting. An MP jumped into a lift with me on my sort of second or third day, said he'd be really happy to show me around all the bars. And it was just sort of this low-level stuff that just felt like it was all the time.
And this makes you feel uncomfortable?
Yes, it did make me feel uncomfortable. I had other members of teams coming to me saying, "Oh, come and work for me. I can pay you whatever you want if you'd only come and work for me." And that happened quite a lot. This particular person kept coming in. But then in around sort of 94, 95, I was assaulted, I can only say now, by an MP. And I did report it, but nothing was done. In fact, it was brushed under the carpet. It was made out that it was a sort of minor incident, and what did I expect, and what did I want them to do about it, kind of thing.
How does that make you feel? Because presumably,
vulnerable.
Yeah, because presumably there is. Well, was there a procedure in place?
No, there was nothing. There was no HR process.
So
there was no HR structure. I told my manager, and in fact, I also had some issues with him. He used to shout at me quite a lot. Our offices were next door to each other, and he would shout, rather than pick the phone up and ask me to go in or come in and see me, he would just shout my name until I went in. One occasion I went in and he said, "Oh, I just wanted to tell you that's a really nice dress that you've got on."
And this is the person that you had to report an assault to?
Yeah, he was the only person I could report it to. There wasn't really anyone else. There was an HR department, but it was made clear that was for members and member staff. It wasn't for house staff. You were sort of not. There wasn't anywhere for you to go, basically. So I said that to him, and that was his response, and I felt very vulnerable. I felt very exposed, but I also felt like I just needed to toughen up a bit. And this sort of word resilience has been bandied around quite a lot, and I think you were made to feel that you needed to be resilient if you wanted to get on in that organisation. Obviously, that is not the definition of resilience, is putting up with that kind of behaviour. But
did you at any point feel you should go to the police? Did you ever consider that?
No, but this was, as I say, in the 90s. After I contacted Andrea Leadsom to tell her my story, I got a response to say you should go to the police. So I did. So I went to the police quite recently.
Because presumably at the time you wanted to keep your job.
I wanted to keep my job, and because it was played down, oh, this is how everyone has this. One comment that I've read in the paper: you haven't earned your stripes until you've been assaulted, basically. That's exactly how it felt. It felt that This was just part and parcel of that culture, of this very sort of insular culture.
And that's what this report that came out last week demonstrated, that this is widespread, is endemic. It seems to be in the fabric of Westminster.
Absolutely.
When you were going through your ordeal, did you speak to your colleagues about any experiences they might have? Did you see other things going on around you to make you feel that you weren't the only one that was going through this?
Yes, absolutely, I wasn't the only one. I mean, I told people about the incident with that MP because he then went on to stalk me for years, and nothing was done about it.
What was that like, day to day?
It was awful. I used to hide from, if I saw, because he worked in the same building as me. So I used to hide on the same floor, actually. So if I saw him, I would, you know, make a beeline for the loo, or I would hide, or he would find me. And I mean, he'd make a beeline for me in the staff cafeteria. He would come and sit with me. Yeah, yeah.
Is he still in Westminster now?
No. But he would sort of make a beeline for me, and my friends knew, oh God, here he comes.
So they would know to help you. To
and they would we would sort of share our experiences of members behaving badly, but it was just, you were just made to feel as if you just had to get on with it, you just had to suck it up, because at the end of the day, it's not really that big a deal, there are more important things. That's the message, there are more important things to be worrying about.
So it's almost the price that women and some men have to pay for a career in Westminster.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, some of what you're describing to me, we're not talking about one-off instance, we're talking about your daily working life being affected by bullying, harassment.
Yes, and it affects me now.
Yeah, how are you now?
I struggle. I've been diagnosed with PTSD. I have sleepless nights. Yeah, thanks. And you know, this is really scary to come and do this, but it's so important because I don't think people appreciate how damaging it is to people, and that's the message I wanted to kind of get across, is that this is affecting everyday people, it's affecting their lives, it's affecting their careers. You know, I felt there was no choice but for me to leave the house because I couldn't cope with it any longer.
And that must be so disappointing for you in terms of, I would imagine going into Westminster, you imagined a long-lasting, worthwhile career.
Yeah, it's a career for life. You know, I really value the importance that Parliament plays. I loved working for an institution that was doing such good work. It was really important to me. I was passionate about my job. I was passionate about doing something of value, and yeah, so it did feel like it was going to be for life.
Well, you're doing something positive now in terms of you're using your experience to speak up with the solidarity of others who have been through the same thing, to help women in politics, to help women in Westminster, and men who are vulnerable as well. We've had stories of men who have been through similar experiences. What do you want to come from this report and this discussion that's happening today and going forward?
I want historic cases to be looked at because I am not alone. There are lots of other cases that weren't even looked at. There are lots of people that have grievances, I'm sure, that haven't even had the chance to talk about them. So it's really important for me that historic cases are looked at. I want an apology. Really, I want someone to take responsibility for what's happened, and I want management to accept that there is a problem.